The apostles are the first leadership generation of the early church. Every other church leader in history, be that a pope, a patriarch, a bishop, or the pastor from down the street, they all see themselves continuing the tradition of these first church leaders. Thankfully, today's church leaders don't get killed as often as the early church leaders were. More after this. Hagiography is a document that collects stories about the lives of the saints. They frequently include a violent end, which testifies to the enormous creativity humans develop when they go about killing each other. The modern reader hears the word legend or story and automatically thinks, ooh, just stories or just legends. But that's not true, because they're not just legends, but they are legends. A story or a myth or a legend is not something you turn to when you don't have facts. A narrative is something you turn to when you have something important to tell that makes sense of our existence on earth. Facts are just that, facts. In themselves, they mean nothing. Stories, legends, and myth mean everything. That's how humans communicate meaning. If that were not so, then the MIT would be a worldwide cultural phenomenon and not Hollywood. But Hollywood is, because they tell the stories that define our lives. I have broken the story of the apostles into 4 parts. This is the 4th and last part, and in this video we talk about James, Jude, Thomas and Paul. If you haven't seen the previous videos, start with video 1. There should be a link in the upper right corner of your screen that takes you to the first video. Who James is becomes really confusing. He is not mentioned very often in the Gospels, and when he is mentioned, no significant events are connected with his name. Most likely he is one of 3 people. He can be James, the lesser brother of James the Great. Less or great is no value judgment, but refers either to size or age. He's younger than his brother or not as big. Both brothers are known for their foul temper. Modern biblical scholars are split on this identification. He could also be James, the brother of the Lord. That would make him one of the most prominent and influential people in the early church. James was a leader of the church in Jerusalem, which was the first Christian community. James gets into a fight with Saint Paul, which results in the first big conflict of Christianity. The question is whether a convert to Christianity has to convert to Judaism first. James says yes, Paul says no, and what Peter says depends on who he is talking to at the moment. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. In the end, Paul wins. Non-Jews are admitted into the Christian church without converting to Judaism first. The third possible identification is that James is a brother of Matthew the tax collector. If he is that person, his exploits remain mostly obscure. Who James, son of ALPHAEUS, really is lost to the fog of history. For his death, there are also several possibilities. Some traditions claim that he and other Christians were arrested in Jerusalem and executed on the orders of King Herod Agrippa. The king died in 44 AD, so James would have survived Jesus by only about 11 years. Other legends place him in Ostrakhan in Lower Egypt, where he was crucified after preaching the gospel. In Christian iconography, he is often depicted holding a fuller's club, because in a third tradition about his martyrdom, the Jewish leaders of Jerusalem recognize him as a good and honest man. They ask him to stand on the pinnacle of the temple and preach against Jesus' resurrection and his future return to earth. When James preaches the exact opposite, they push him down and beat him to death with stones and a fuller's club. Jude the Apostle, or Jude Thaddeus, is a patron saint of lost causes, desperate situations and hospitals. The Greek spelling of his name is Judas, the same name as the apostle who betrayed Jesus. To distinguish this good Judas from the bad Judas, early English translations of the New Testament, which was originally written in Greek, changed his name to Jude. Most other languages refer to both apostles by the same name. Judas was a name that was as common as Tom, Dick and Harry are in the English-speaking world. He became the patron saint of lost causes because many Christians were afraid to invoke his name because it was Judas, the same name as Judas Iscariot, the apostle who betrayed Jesus. And maybe that prayer reaches the wrong person. And as no one was calling on Jude for help, the saint had not much to do and became quite eager to help anyone who would call upon him. So if you have absolutely no hope left, it can't get worse if you turn to Saint Jude or to Judas. Roman Catholics identify Jude as another brother of Jesus and as the writer of the short epistle of Jude. An epistle is a letter. And of course, Protestants rarely share that view. They often debate if he was the brother or the son of James. So, if James is indeed the brother of the Lord and Jude is his brother, then he is also the brother of Jesus. If James is his father and the brother of the Lord, then Jesus is his uncle. Or Jude and James are different persons altogether and are not related to Jesus at all. Sometimes Jude is identified as a bridegroom at the wedding of Cana. That is the wedding where they run out of wine and Mary makes her son, that's Jesus, turn water into wine so the party can go on. And according to the steward of the house, Jesus produces an incredible vintage. Tradition has it that Jude preached the gospel in Judea, Samaria, Idumea, Syria, Mesopotamia and Libya. He also brought the faith to Armenia, and hence he became the patron saint of the Armenian Orthodox Church. According to legend, Jude suffered martyrdom in Beirut in the Roman province of Syria together with Simon the Zealot, with whom he is often put together as a missionary team. However, Simon is a guy who might have died all over the ancient world. Jude was beaten to death when he preached the gospel to a pagan priest. In Christian iconography, he is often depicted with an axe, the instrument that was used to end his worldly existence. It may be coincident or not, but the remains of both Jude and Simon are now in the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. St. Thomas is a famous doubting Thomas, which is a little unfair because all the other apostles had actually met the resurrected Jesus when Thomas was not present. All he wanted was the same proof all the others had gotten, and Jesus gave it to him. In his missionary travels, Thomas turned east and headed to India. He arrived in Kerala in India in the year 52 AD. This is quite plausible because trade along the Silk Route connected ancient Rome with China. Globalization is not a modern phenomenon. Thomas preached the gospel and Christianity has been a constant presence on the Indian subcontinent since that time. Some legends report that he even made it to China, that has also a Christian community since antiquity. Thomas was martyred 20 years later in Mylapore, near Madras in 72 AD. I will devote another video to Thomas. Finally, there is the Apostle Paul. Many say he wasn't an apostle at all because he wasn't appointed by the living Christ. He strongly disagreed and said that he was an apostle who was called by the risen Christ when he was heading to Damascus to persecute the emerging Christian church. But I will look into Paul in the next video. For now, thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I see you in the next video.